Hello, everyone. Welcome. We're going to get started in just a minute. While we're waiting for everyone to join us, please go ahead and say hello in the chat box. Let us know where you're joining us from. Hi, everyone. We're going to get started in just 1 minute. Hello, everyone. We're saying hello in the chat box right now, seeing where everybody's joining us from. See some folks in DC, South Carolina, New York, New Jersey, Oklahoma, Illinois, Arizona. Glad to have you all with us today. We are going to get started in just a minute. Perfect, great. Good to see everybody with us today. We're going to go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone, welcome. Your phone line is muted. The webinar is being recorded and a link to the recording will be made available. If you have any questions for our presenters as we're going along, please put them into the Q&A box. We'll try to catch them if they're in the chat box, but if you want your question asked and answered live, please put it into the Q&A box. With that, I'm going to turn things over to Jodi Grant, Executive Director of Afterschool Alliance, and Aaron Dworkin, CEO of the National Summer Learning Association.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Leslie. I'm Jodi Grant, and I am delighted to be here with all of our partners from the National Summer Learning Association, led by Aaron Dworkin, who you will hear from in a bit. I'm also thrilled to be joined by Alicia Copeland from the Parks and People Foundation in Baltimore, and KJ Jackson from Touch the Zone in Tulsa, Oklahoma. As we all know, COVID-19 has transformed life in America, exacerbating inequities and taking an enormous toll in the terms of lives lost and altered. The Afterschool Alliance, as soon as COVID began, wanted to find out what after-school programs are doing to meet the needs of our kids during COVID and what challenges they were facing, particularly, as we heard from all of them, in providing the absolutely essential services and supports that our students needed more than ever. You know, it's interesting, so many people think like, well, if school's not in session, why do you need after school? And the reality is after school is all the time now. And programs have been jumping through hurdles and hoops to meet the needs of our students and our families. And they do so much more than keeping kids safe and providing homework help. They're where students can embrace hands-on STEM learning, meet mentors who change the trajectory of their lives, and discover how they can be a constructive force for change. Most federally funded after-school and summer learning programs serve low-income students. And this means that they're a tremendous force in promoting equity and opportunity in ways that very few institutions are able to do. The strength and survival of these programs is essential not just to the kids and the families and communities we're serving, but to the economic health of our country. And the surveys we're about to release and share with you show really troubling news. Sadly, what we're finding is that, prior to COVID, low-income kids had far less access to the services and supports of after-school programs. Since COVID-19, it is worse. And that means that equity gap, which we all knew was there to begin with, is growing. Programs and parents are challenged by virtual learning and the evolving and ever-changing erratic school schedules. For the programs that are operating, after school means all day long, whether it's in person or virtual. Programs are limited by budgets that are completely inadequate to address the new safety protocols and the needs of students. If you think about it, more time, more space, more staff, PPE and cleaning supplies. You can't do that on a budget that was used to serve kids just in the afternoons. As a result, students from low-income families are now much less likely to have access to after school, and as we're saying now, this can be all day long, after school and out of school time programs. So our first slide, which we're hopefully sharing with you now, I'm trying to see if I can see it with you all. There we go. So these surveys were conducted by Edge Research, and they did a survey of more than 1,000 program providers representing 7,600 program sites. And we surveyed over 1,000 parents, 1,071 parents, which is a nationally represented sample. In the study, we defined programs serving mostly low-income families as those in which 75% of the children qualify for free or reduced price lunch. And programs serving mostly higher income families are defined as those in which less than half of the students are qualified for free and reduced price lunch. Next slide. So as I mentioned, we're really troubled by the findings of these surveys. And what we're finding is that programs serving mostly higher income families are twice as likely to be open, physically open and serving kids in person than low income programs serving low income kids. And this is particularly troubling because, we've all heard about the academic loss, but COVID is taking a huge social and emotional toll on our kids, many of whom have been socially isolated for 6 months and counting. One of the things, slide 3, please. We found is that 21st Century Community Learning Center programs, so these are federally funded after-school programs, are less likely to report being physically open, and that's because they're located in a public school and the schools are closed. There are places that have exceptions to that, like Madison, Wisconsin, but it's a real shame if the programs can't be operating because the schools aren't letting them in. 21st Century programs serve about 1.7 million children annually, and they are a critical support to underserved kids and underserved communities. And if they cannot open their physical doors, and as I said before, that's because many of them are tied to public schools, which are not allowing them to use the facilities because they're closed, there are a huge number of kids, almost 2 million, that are really being left behind. Next slide. This is a really serious issue, and we are hearing from parents, low-income parents in particular, about how hard it is to juggle being able to work and monitoring their child's learning remotely. And as we know, there's an equity issue here too. There are a whole bunch of kids that are unable to learn remotely for a bunch of reasons. Next slide. We're not optimistic about the fall. What we're finding and seeing is that once again, the programs for the parents who can afford it are much more likely to be serving kids in person than programs for lower income families. And the toll of this pandemic is really felt by programs and families. 75% of our programs are extremely or very concerned about their ability to meet the needs of families who need programs for longer periods of time this fall. So, parents that are working, whether they're forced to actually not be home and they're working out of the house, or even if they're working in the house, it's really hard for parents to do that if their kids are home on their own and virtually learning. Next slide. The need for PPE, additional space for social distancing, and finding staff to work longer program hours are all the concerns that our programs are reporting to us in their ability to try and keep the doors open for kids. But I do want to say, and offer a little bit of hope on this. I have to say that, when I've talked to programs from across the nation, and many of you are on this call, I want to say thank you. You have put kids front and center in everything that you're doing. And as I said, trying to jump through hoops to serve kids, whether it's virtually and in person. And next slide, please. And it's been extraordinary. So there are bright spots that we found from this summer, and to share those with you, I'm going to turn it over to Aaron.
Hi, thank you, Jodi, and thank you to everyone who's joining us and doing so much over the summer and now as the school year has started to again keep focusing on students and families. I'm not seeing all the slides here; they just went away. All right. I'm just real fast. I'm Aaron Dworkin. I'm the CEO of the National Summer Learning Association. We're a big partner with the Afterschool Alliance and many of you. And this summer, we're looking at a lot of data from programs that operated over the summer and what lessons we can learn and the real implications that are affecting us as we go into the school year right now. And again, all of us have been working. One thing that's been a silver lining has been the collaboration and creativity and all the research and curriculum and resources that have been put out by so many of us. I'll just, plug not only Afterschool Alliance came out with a great blueprint. We also ran a National Summer Continuous Learning Task Force that came out with a COVID-19 summer playbook with a lot of resources from multiple national groups that hopefully some of you will be able to access, put in the chat. And also a new PSA campaign that we're doing, really targeting parents who are struggling to still educate their students at home. So here's what we know. This is also a time of great challenge, but it's a time of also great resilience and inspirational leadership and work on the ground in all of our communities. So again, only 5% of providers reported being completely closed this summer, even though many more could have. People were finding a way. You could see some were physically open, some capacity, but that was very hard. But everybody was trying to make that effort. And as you heard before, you'll see those who have more resources are more likely to be in person with programs. Next slide. So again, one thing that I also take inspiration from was how many programs and staff just kind of went beyond their mission, maybe, and to just help support students and families and meet their needs, whatever they were, wherever they were. And so we have a huge number of programs, especially those who are working with predominantly low-income students who are finding ways to get other wraparound services, get more meals to them, connect folks with other resources to help them. We have health crisis, we have an economic crisis, education crisis. People had great demand for needs and support and less money to do that with, and our programs are just trying to find different ways to be as helpful as possible. Next slide. One thing that I think we saw immediately off the bat, again, definitely in the spring when COVID first started, but now and then an increase over the summer, was how many programs tried to provide support services, a lot of times in person, for children of the first responders and essential workers, folks who didn't have the luxury of working from home and working remotely, who had to go, and they were doing that on behalf and in service of all of us, and our programs were helping them. We also see that so many parents, and in addition to the program survey, there was a big parent survey, and you could see that there was great satisfaction with the programs that we're running this past summer. So again, some silver linings, things to be very proud of from the parents, 57% extremely satisfied. Next slide. I think this is kind of gets to what Jodi was alluding to, and we're seeing it with our program partners across the country. We're in a dire economic challenging time here, and 89% of our program provider partners are very concerned about the long-term funding, whether it's government funding, corporate, individual, foundation. So many of our partners had to cancel fundraising events, can't do them in person, so that's a huge piece of budget. And so even though demand and need for our programs and services has never been higher, finding the dollars to pay for it is going to be a big challenge right now and going forward. And this is leading to folks who are really concerned about their viability. It's existential for a lot of programs, and we need to think about how we can be efficient and creative and supportive of one another. And definitely, I mean, we're seeing almost no competition among programs in the moment we're in, but you can see how many people are concerned not only about losing funding for this year, but long-term future, and even the ability of their families to come back after this pandemic. Next. And then this is really, you know, when we talk about existential, there are 64% are concerned about having to permanently close down their program. You just, the business model is upside down for us, and it's a real challenge. And I know all of us are going to be working really hard to make sure we have the dollars to keep us going until we can turn the corner and the economy turns the corner, and our just the way we're able to deliver programs can improve. But in the moment right now, getting people from A to B is going to be really tough, and we all need to help one another. Next slide. And then we've talked about those, even though we had so many programs that did operate, all of them, many of them served far less students than typical, and they were very concerned about all the students they were unable to reach and unable to access, especially as they switched on to virtual programming on the drop of a dime, which was so impressive. But still, we know about the digital divide, and all those we weren't able to get and reach. And now trying to make sure we know where they are and get to them. But that's a big concern from our community. So I think we'll go back to Jodi, because I think there's a lot for us to do as a field to make sure we get the resources.
So I'm going to share a little bit more good news, but I want to flag that while kids and families and communities have been front and center as you know, the field is really moving to serve those needs, this is vital to our economy. If we want our local economies to get back on track, we have got to have a place where our kids can be safe in learning, particularly if it's not at school, so that parents can get back to work, whether it's at home or on their job. And it's not a surprise that support for after school and summer learning remains off the chart from parents. It's more than 80% of parents favor public funding for after school and summer learning opportunities. And now more than ever is the time where that investment can go a really long way. Next slide. And you know, one of the things we're seeing is that nearly 3 in 4 parents now say that because of the pandemic, they appreciate so much more what teachers do and what after school programs do for their children. Next slide. As I said before, there are flashing red lights in these surveys with regards to the sustainability of programs that families rely on and the ability of these programs to serve the students who need the support the most. I have to say, and I'm not even going to say this lightly, I am furious that the Department of Education has yet to expedite its waiver process so that the federal funds that go to after school can clearly be used for programs that operate all day long, supplementing what a virtual school day is doing. We have received those waivers from HHS, the Child Care Department, so that programs can operate to supplement the school day. And we're seeing programs that are operating, hiring tutors and providing both instructional and enrichment support for kids. So, you know, all we can do to urge the Department of Education to get those waivers out as soon as possible, the better. This has been on the agenda since March, so there's no excuse that it hasn't happened yet. As soon as these waivers are available, we urge every state to seize the moment and get them, because you know, every dollar that we can put into serving kids right now is going to make a difference for the kids that we can serve. And we're asking the Senate to join the House of Representatives in passing the 21st Century Community Learning Centers Coronavirus Relief Act to ensure that this flexibility is given to after school and summer learning programs supported by 21st Century, so that in communities where they need it, where there's a staggered school schedule or a virtual school day, they can operate all day long. And most important, as we said before, to do this properly, you need more staff, you need more space, you need more time, you need to have more safety measures. We need students in small pods operating with just, one or two adults, and that costs money. And we have worked with the bipartisan policy committee to run the numbers and to serve the kids that need it. A one-time infusion of $6.2 billion would allow us to serve kids all day long across the country in these 21st century programs. So we're urging Congress to make that investment. In the grand scheme of things, it will be money well worth it because it will help our kids not just catch up, but get ahead, and it will help our economy return to where it was. It's now my pleasure to return this program back over to Leslie with the National Summer Learning Association.
Thank you, Jodi and Aaron. Next, we're going to hear from two program providers about the work that they were able to do this summer. So I'd like to introduce Alicia Copeland, Youth Programs Director for Parks and People Foundation in Baltimore, Maryland, and KJ Jackson, Executive Director of Touch in the Zone in Tulsa, Oklahoma. First, we'll hear from Alicia.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Everyone has been like right on time based on our schedule. So Leslie knows I can go on and on about my awesome program, but I'm going to behave, and I definitely want to make sure KJ gets to be able to talk about his awesomeness as well. So hello, I'm Alicia. As she said, I am the proud Youth Programs Director and Camp Director over Super Kids Camp. This was our 24th summer of programming, and as Leslie said, we are here in Baltimore City. 2020, wow, threw us for a whole entire loop. We literally were 3 days away from launching our registration when all of the schools in Maryland pretty much kind of shut down. So we thought about what we're going to do and finally decided to just go all virtual. So in a normal, I'll say pre-COVID circumstance, we normally serve 600 rising first to fifth graders throughout Baltimore City. So they can go to any school as long as it's inside Baltimore City. And being that we decided to then switch it to virtual, we lowered that number a little bit, knowing that most likely some kids would probably not be able to participate or would choose not to participate. We have environmental literacy content for them. They do Project Learning Tree as their curriculum. They also do independent reading. We have social emotional learning activities. We do character education. We also have awesome, fantastic enrichment partners who work with us, and we ask them that, while they're learning all of these different visual and performing arts, we also want you to incorporate some environmental and physical literacy into that so that they can understand that intersection of how, thank you, you did, how you make that intersection between nature, the environment, the parks that we offer here in Baltimore, because they are beautiful, along with those performing and visual arts so that the kids are getting that enrichment. Looking at my chat, one of my staff is here. So thank you, David, for that. So in all that, trying to figure out, oh, Jesus, like how do you get all of this awesomeness and make it into this virtual experience? And that is what we had to do. And that was what we pivoted to pretty much in about maybe 2.5 months. And as Leslie in SLA will say, summer does begin in September. So you have to imagine starting planning in September for an in-person program and literally 2.5 months before you are set to go, just, okay, change that all and do something different. So kudos, all of you, just please pat yourselves on the back for all the amazingness that you did if you did something this summer. So what it ended up looking like, we cut the number in half that we expected to serve down to 300. We only wound up serving a little over 100 kids. So we were a little disappointed with that. But in that, I will say we were just glad to make sure that we were serving any of the kids in Baltimore City, just because with everything that was going on, the summer was crazy. So besides the fact we have COVID, we also have, I'll say, everything that's going on in the news, how that reverberates through Baltimore City. And we have some kids who are experiencing that and living through that. And then we want them to get online so they can learn about the environment. And some parents were like, yeah. And some kids are like, awesome. Others are like, okay, what's going on? I'm not sure about this. So what we ended up having for this summer, like I said, we're a little over 100 students. We beefed up our SEL. And the things I'll talk about were how we did that with our SEL. Also the, I'll say, awesome, phenomenal job that we did with staff support, as well as with parent support and parent communication. So for our SEL, social emotional learning, hopefully everyone on here knows that, but if not, that's your new learning for today. For our social emotional learning, we wanted to make sure we had the morning meetings. I'm so glad that people are continuing that. I'm seeing that through all the districts, so praise Jesus. But we wanted to make sure we had those morning meetings. Like I said, Baltimore has been through a lot, especially in the past 5 years. So our kids are experiencing a lot of trauma, and COVID did not help at all for them having to be virtual. When you talk about the inequities of whether they have technology, whose technology are they using, what happens if mom, dad, grandma, or auntie leaves and they can no longer, access the program. We wanted to make sure they had a chance to connect. So we had weekly themes for each of our 6 weeks of our program. My assistant director of academics is amazing, besides the fact that we went to the same school and graduated from college together. She's amazing in her own right, but she had them doing respect bingo. She had them doing share outs on Jamboard about perseverance. And like I said, these are rising first through 5th graders. So this is not a middle or a high school program. And these kids are saying some profound things in these times when they're sharing out. And we told them, we're like, look, this is a lot. And, if they need to share longer, let them share longer so they can feel supported. So what that led into was, yes, kids wanted to stay on. They wanted to have lunch with the counselors. They didn't want to leave. They were really connected. And that was one of the number one concerns my staff had. They did not think they were going to be able to connect with kids through a screen. And that was probably the one thing that they were all surprised about. Leading into that with the staff support, we wanted to make sure that they felt like they were ready. It's really hard to cram a week-long training with Pear Deck, Flipgrid, Jamboard, Google Meet, Google Classroom, and they did it because they're awesome rock stars. I hope they know that. But we wanted to make sure that we supported them in whatever we did. We had 3 additional positions that we created, volunteer and data assistants. So they were able to deal with the volunteers. My volunteer manager, who's awesome, who I think is online right now, she handled the interns. And then because I don't have to drive to sites, senior staff was readily available. So if there was a problem, all we had to do was put in the Google Meet code and we were there to be able to help. So staff definitely felt very supported. We had 2 staff in each classroom to teach, so they knew somebody else was in there kind of feeling the burn with them. And then lastly, the parents. The parents are the most important. One of the things that I said in another webinar that I was in was, I want to get that magic that we had this summer with the parents and the level of parent engagement, because as I'm a parent as well, so I'm right there. So yeah, I'm engaged because I'm there. I can hear it. This is probably the first time I know what my child does all day in person. So my goal is how can we kind of get whatever that feeling was and keep that going when we become in person or if we're hybrid. Parents were very appreciative of everything that we had to do. We did supply runs, so it was kind of like a meet and greet. Normally you might not see the head of a summer program, but they got to meet me because I definitely was doing those summer runs, driving behind the buses and handing out supplies. We use Remind, which is a communication app, so the parents were loving that. They can text, they can email back and forth. We wanted to make sure we had office hours for the staff. So those office hours, the staff enjoyed it too because they had more time to reflect and debrief. But parents really could call for about an hour and a half about anything. They couldn't figure out how to work their computer. Their child couldn't log into Google Classroom. They were just exasperated and wanted to chit chat with the site coordinator to talk to another adult because the kids are all in the house. So they were really just overwhelmed with the amount of availability, which is something that we don't normally have. So what I will say is that at the end, when we had our graduation, our culminating ceremony, the onions that were in my eyes, I can't even begin to tell you, I'm normally not that emotional, but it really was just a fantastic culmination of just awesomeness. We pivoted, we did it. It was the first time ever. Kids still didn't want to leave. They were asking in the chat box, like, are we still doing independent reading at 1 o'clock? I had to tell them no. They were a little disappointed, but it was just wonderful. And I think all the things that they said from the survey are exactly what we experienced. We did not get all the kids that we wanted. We know we could serve more. We wish that we could have served more, but we also realized that, yes, there were some parents who were tired of being online. There were parents who didn't have the capability to stay home, so their child was no longer able to participate. And there also were some parents who just had to change plans, or they just said, I want to do something in person. I know you're awesome, but because you're virtual, I can't do it. So with that, as we plan and move towards the future, we have three models. We'll either be online again, we'll either be hybrid, or we will be all in person at a reduced capacity. But that was our experience. Like I said, it was wonderful. I secretly think I might want to do it again just to see how it would turn out, but I do miss I miss the 600 kids, so. And I will pass it on to KJ.
Awesome. All right, I'll try and follow your lead. So first, just welcome to everybody. This has been a crazy season. And so I'm the executive director of Touch out of Oklahoma. Touch stands for Tulsans Operating in Unity, Creating Hope. And we run the Zone Academy, which is a 21st Century Community Learning Center program out of Oklahoma. And so when COVID hit us, it was just like it was for everybody else. It was like the sky is falling, and we didn't know what to do. And the Department of Ed, our 21st Century Division, they did a fantastic job of trying to connect with us every single week and check in and say, okay, what are you guys thinking? How can we help you be creative? What are the things that you can be coming up with? And really, one of the exercises that we did during this summer, during one of our calls, was we were saying, they asked us to pick a story that best represented your experience. And I remember saying that I picked the Three Little Pigs because I felt like, we had this big bad wolf of COVID, and I felt like we started when COVID first hit, and we built a program, and it was built of straw, and COVID came and blew that down because everything changed again. And then we built another program, and it was built of sticks, and then COVID came and blew that down, and so on and so forth. And so our experience really has been an interesting journey of progression and continuous improvement. We started when COVID came out of spring break, really kind of stopping and assessing and just really trying to get our wits about us and just checking in on kids. And so our strategy was to just check in on kids, check in on their families, make sure that they were okay, that they were safe, find out what they needed. And then from there, we began to move into a virtual program where what we did is we recreated our building. We operate on campus at our school locations, but we also are blessed enough to have our own facility. And so what we did was that our facility was where students would come to have their main points of academic enrichment. And so we did a complete rebuild, a virtual rebuild of our zone facility where students could show up as avatars. And so they could do it from home, from a phone, from a tablet, from a Chromebook, from any device. And they could come and they could pick up their avatar, and they would be their avatar, and they would walk through the building that they were very familiar with, and they could interact with teachers, interact with other students, they could talk. And so we tried to create this little virtual world of just giving them some socialization. And so we did that in our first phase. But that was just to really kind of help kids have this idea of still being connected, because we understood that they were all just ripped out of the world and ripped away from their friends and everybody that they thought they were going to see and they thought they were going to get to hang out with, they weren't going to get to. And so that was kind of our first phase in. And so COVID continued, and we knew we had to do things different. And so we created a program called Curbside Connections. And through Curbside Connections, our amazing staff, what they did is they would go out, they would set up throughout the course of a week, and they would go and they would take STEM kits or do art projects, or we would do dinner with the staff where we would drive to an apartment complex, or we would drive to the neighborhood where the students live, and we would set up a table and, with social distancing and masks and all of that nature, but we would have the activities right there on the curbside. And so they would be able to do activities, and that way we could lay eyes on the kids and their families. And we use that kind of as a way to really get connected with the families so that we could find out what the other needs were. And so through the Curbside Connections, one of the things that we discovered in our area was that there was a lot of food insecurity that was going on. And I think we knew that nationwide. A lot of our students depend on their school for a main source of their nutrition, what they're eating. And so that was still happening. We had families that weren't going to the school pickup points and a myriad of other things. And so we had to pivot again and say, okay, we're going to do Curbside Connections, but what else can we do? And so what we did is we contacted some of our local foundations and went to local grocery stores, and we adopted the families. We adopted 60 families, and we provided groceries to them every single week throughout the entire summer. So that way we could help alleviate some of that food insecurity, even while they were at home going through the traumatic change of COVID, while we would still do the Curbside Connections, do the STEM activities, do the check-in and things of that nature. And so we ran that all the way through the summer. And that worked fairly well. I mean, it's exhausting, it's tiring, but I have an amazing staff that is so committed to these families and to these kids that they were willing to pick up the charge and do that gladly. And as we transitioned out of summer in July to August, we decided that we would start taking on, here in Oklahoma, we had some of the mandates lifted, and so we could do some in-person gathering. And so we started bringing in kids to our main facility. And so at our facility, we could normally take 200 kids prior to COVID. We had an architectural firm come on out and look at all of the CDC guidelines and look at our facility space and our square footage and our classrooms and determine what our new capacity would be. And our new capacity with modifications to the building could be 100. And so that was not going to work. And so I learned a long time ago, whenever you're attacking a problem, you start where you are, you do what you can, and you use what you have. And so we said, well, we're going to have to do some remodeling, but until then, we can start bringing in groups in a small group of maybe 15. We have some large open space, 1,000 square feet space where you could put, students in that area. And we started doing some of those one-on-one sessions to try and help some of the loss, because we discovered that we had families who had gotten frustrated with the distance learning and had not even tried to do any schooling since spring break. And so we were trying to mitigate that. And so the staff would meet with kids in rotation so that we could actually, be able to facilitate and provide that one-on-one access. And really, I tell my staff all the time, they are truly the frontline workers. They are the essential employees, because they're taking the risk, so to speak, of being there and being hands-on. And so we did that coming out of July and into August. And then midway through August, there was some CARES funding that opened up, and we applied to get CARES funding to make the modifications to our facility so that we can increase our capacity, thereby being able to open up all day to be able to serve more students. And so from August, the middle of August to the end of August, we basically gutted our entire facility that we've been running and using for the last, we've been a 21st century site for 13 years. And so that site had been used primarily for junior high and high school, but we were targeting our elementary kids at this time. So we pretty much had to gut the facility and redo it and redo our classroom space and redo the entire layout so that we could figure out how to provide programming to our families while our district is in distance learning, so that those who have internet, even though internet has been made accessible to them, those who have been, who've been given Chromebooks and everything else that they need, how they can come on site and we can provide that support to them. And so we got that funding, and then we've opened up our facility the entire day from 7 until 5:30, where we're servicing kids. And right now we're about 38 kids after 2.5-3 weeks that are coming on site. We still have a hybrid model of what we can offer virtually, but we're really focusing in on our program right now is the personal touch and alleviating frustration with technology. And so our students are there all day while they're doing things with their teachers. We had to go to find another funding source through CARES funding to be able to open up during the day. And so we basically run our out of school time programming. That starts in the afternoon when school ends. We typically around 2:30, we switch over to what we do best, which is that academic enrichment. But we're having the kids all day. And so what we discovered was the families are needing support all day. We have families walking in, parents that are crying, saying, I can't do this anymore. I've got to be at work. I've got to leave my pre-K with my third grader. And so it's been a whirlwind of emotions for everybody, for our staff, for our team, for everything that we have. But we've just been pushing through and basically rebuilding the house. Every time the wind blows and knocks over what we're doing, we just get back up, pick it up, and we're just getting better and better and improving each and every time. So that's been our experience, and we're excited to continue to be in the journey, but there's a lot of important work to be done, and we know that everybody out there is just doing their piece. So that's me.
Great, thank you so much, KJ. So we have some time now for some questions. If we could have all of our presenters and Jodi and Aaron come back on. We have a few questions from the audience. If you have any questions for any of the speakers and you haven't put them in the Q&A box yet, please go ahead and do that. So the first question we have for Alicia and KJ, could you speak a little bit about how you have been working with or how you work with your school districts, your local school districts?
Absolutely. Well, I can jump in there and go first. And so Tulsa is very fortunate in that we have an intermediary that our district has been working with called the Opportunity Project. And so that helps to kind of streamline some of our communication. And they've been kind of set up in our city to help with additional resources from snack help to helping us find volunteers or staffing and things of that nature. And so we're working through them, with that. And then with our 21st Century site, we are specifically, teamed up with a particular school. So we're with our local elementary school and our high school. And so we are focusing on those two schools at this present time, but there is a funding source that is coming into our city that will allow us to actually be able to work with the district, and they're helping identify other kids who are disconnected from the learning or disengaged from the learning that they are going to be referring to us. And so we have great lines of communication with the district just to say, hey, let us know where we can be the most help. And they're feeding that information to us through our intermediary and to us directly as well.
Thank you. And I'll jump in as well. So we actually are, I'll say, not the program that runs through our city schools district. So there's actually another program, but because of our relationship with them, we have a connection through our teaching and learning division. And so they are awesome with helping us to make those connections. As I said, in Maryland with the 21st Century, most of them operate with certain schools. And since we pretty much are serving the entire district, they are fantastic with being able to connect us with the principals that we need to talk to, who are the people that we need to see. Here are all the community school coordinators so that we can get the information out. Their information for their programs are listed on their site, but we are right there with them underneath so that parents know that in case their program is not a good fit for them, that other programs like ours are also available. And so we meet generally about 2 to 3 times, I'll say, in person, and then usually we do a lot of email communication, but we just try to make sure we have the same goal in mind. We want for all the 40,000 elementary school kids that we have in the district, for them to be able to have something to do over the summer. So however we can make that happen, we're all for that. And so we communicate a lot just to make sure that here are the sites that are available. Here are the principals that, they need summer programming. Please reach out to them because they need something in their building. So yeah, I love the relationship that we have. Rhonda is an excellent person to know and resourceful. So I enjoy the connection that we have.
Thank you for that. And I believe we have Tanya Jones, Executive Director of Federal and State Programs and Grants from Tahlequah Public School in Oklahoma. Tanya, can you share a little bit from your perspective of the school district?
Well, as you mentioned, from Tahlequah, Oklahoma, and we are a school district in northeastern Oklahoma. We have our free and reduced rate is about 74%. We are over 60% Native American, representing 29 different tribes, and we're in the capital of the Cherokee Nation. Our district has 3 21st Century grants. The 21st Century grants here in the state serve sites, so we serve 6 sites, with those, one being a dependent school district in our county that's actually not part of our public schools. But so we work very well with the other schools in our district. We also have a strong partnership with the Boys and Girls Club of Tahlequah, which is like the first Native American Boys and Girls Club in America, I believe. We were super excited with what happened this summer. Not that it had to happen, but like everyone said, we kind of just had to be creative. But we did something similar to KJ with Curbside Connections. We ended up serving 415 students in our summer school. Over 89% of those students were economically disadvantaged. And within those kids, we did 1,185 curbside connection visits. And what that was is we got in cars, we got in groups, we went and visited families. We took materials to the families. We made sure they had art supplies, books, paper, scissors, everything they could possibly need to do activities all summer. And my teachers went and met with the families, sometimes a picnic table outside. Sometimes the neighborhood ended up coming to the table outside. Went in homes. Probably wasn't supposed to do that, but I'm going to be a big girl and admit that sometimes they probably didn't follow the safety protocols they were supposed to, but the relationships that were formed this summer are something we will never forget. People that have been a teacher for 25 years said it's the best thing they've ever done. I was a principal for about 14 years, and I've always known that home visits were very important, but it was kind of a negative experience for teachers. And this completely changed their perception, completely changed the relationships that we had with our families. We have been back in school for a little over a month now. And so we've had program every day of school since we've started. We are seeing every child that can stay, and Tahlequah has about 3,600 kids. 30% of them are to have chosen virtual, but in our buildings with the 21st Century Grant, we've tried to serve every student that wants to stay. And we're doing that with social distancing. With our 21st Century dollars, we were able to do that and hire more staff than we normally would, so we can keep kids in cohorts from the day and small groups. We will not be able to sustain that all year long because of funding. But right now it is important that we get them here. We make sure they're eating, that we make sure they're safe. We make sure that someone's talking to them and hugging them socially, as you can right now, and just making sure that they know that they are loved and missed. And I think our people are doing a wonderful job of making that happen.
Thank you so much, Tanya. So we have a lot of questions here. I'm going to try to get to them. Hopefully we'll be able to get through all of them. But when I wanted to start out with KJ asking you how to share a little bit about how the waiver will affect what you're able to do this fall.
Absolutely. So one of the biggest challenges to the start of this school year has been obviously the funding piece, because our 21st Century funds are, obviously allocated to out of school time programming. And so we got an exemption through HUD, we get community development block grant funding, and we got an exception for them to allow us to use those funds to provide daytime programming. And so we're fully funded to go all the way through the first week of November with the families that we're serving until we can pick up the afternoon hours with our 21st Century programming. And so, that's the frustrating part of the whole journey, is that it would be great to not have to, spend the time while we're trying to meet the needs of the families and deal with food insecurity, internet access, the technological issues, to be able to use the 21st Century funds during the day so that our staff could actually do what they're passionate about doing. Because even with our current staff, our 21st Century staff, to make our all-day programming work, they all took salary pay cuts just so that we could make the little bit of money that we did have stretch for 9 weeks so that we could be there all day. The same staff just voluntarily reduce their hourly wages so that the money would stretch. And so, and that just speaks to the caliber of the team that I have. And they are my heroes. And I told them that they will forever be etched in the history of my heart of how we made it through COVID. But the releasing of these funds, is pivotal in my opinion, because what families are needing right now, while schools cannot be open all day, they are needing someone to stand in the gap and hold the school's hand and hold these families' hands. And I think these dollars should be released to be able to do that. And we have high school and middle school students that we could serve too, that we need to be able to start providing programming for, that we just don't have funding to do that right now. And if this waiver were granted, we'd be able to unleash those gates for those families to be able to start.
Great, thank you. We have a couple questions here about funding, so I'll just throw these out to anybody who wants to respond to them. What about community-based providers not receiving 21st Century funding at this time? Will they be eligible for COVID relief dollars?
I can take a first crack at that and say that if they're receiving childcare dollars, they can be eligible for that. We've also seen a bunch of providers benefit from the PPP loans to keep their doors open and be able to serve kids. And then another piece that's been really important in the CARES Act, in addition to the childcare dollars, in the CARES Act has been funds going to the governors. So we've seen from childcare and the governors about $450 million go to after-school programs so far. The dollars that are earmarked for education can be used through Title I or 21st Century to support after-school dollars, but we are not tracking that. We're not seeing that happen as of yet. So, the most important thing we can do is get waivers, as we've gotten from the Department of Agriculture and HHS, so that the funds that we have can go to support programs all day long. And the Department of Education, we have a couple of states that have applied for waivers. We hope those happen as quickly as possible so that we can use 21st Century. And then of course, yes, you know, hopefully there'll be another COVID relief bill that can address some of these concerns for 21st Century, as well as other childcare and education dollars.
And so you answered this question in the Q&A box, Jodi, but what should our requests to Congress be in order to greatly expand summer now?
So yes, the first thing I want to encourage all of you, if you don't get email alerts from the Afterschool Alliance, please sign up. It's free, it's easy, and we can make it really simple for you to raise your voice to Congress at a time when it matters. Because I mean, listening to Alicia and KJ, you know, I'm blown away. And they need to hear the difference that after school programs are making on the ground. So first and foremost, in the next COVID relief bill, we are asking for $6.2 billion, a one-time infusion of funds into 21st Century so that we can serve more kids. Because as you heard, even the programs that are operating where there's a full school day, we can't serve the same number of kids and have all the safety protocols in place. So that one-time infusion would allow us to serve more kids now. And then when we do get back to whatever our new normal is, there's going to be a lot of catching up to do, and we can serve more kids then. Then secondly, as we know, 21st Century, for every kid that was in an after-school program, there are 2 more that need programs. So it is not enough money. So just in our regular appropriations, asking for an increase. We've been asking for an extra $100 million. It goes a little way to meeting that need. Obviously, funding for summer learning is part of 21st Century, or maybe even, you know, something on the side would be terrific. But all of that, you know, we can make it really simple for you to raise your voice at the national level. And I would say work with your state networks too, because some of these state dollars, particularly governor's dollars and education dollars, we want to get them into these programs because the kids need the support now. And we need to get it to them as soon as possible.
Great.
This is Aaron. I just want to add to Jodi. Thank you, Jodi, for everything you and your team are doing. I just want to underscore the importance of really signing up for her alerts and for the Alliance's alerts, and NSLA also does those, but in terms of getting all our stakeholders involved. So it's not, I think we should think about if you have board members, make sure that they're getting those, getting that information, using their voice. As some of you have your families, there's a lot of people that we all touch that we can kind of bring to our cause to rally around these requests. So it doesn't have to be only us. We have a lot more people we could bring to this.
Great, thank you. So KJ and Alicia, I think people are very impressed with what you had to share. We have quite a few questions in here for you about just your programming and what you were able to do. KJ, there's a question. How did you create your virtual building world? What software did you use? And they said it sounds amazing.
Yes. Okay. So the funny thing about that is about 2 years prior to COVID, we were looking at how could we expand our programming without having to pick up the brick and mortar expenses. And so we really started working on a virtual platform that would be avatar based. And so you can go to the website. It's XR Schools. It uses WebXR technology. WebXR, if you're not familiar with it, you'll probably be more familiar with it in a year to year and a half. It's kind of the next iteration when you move from virtual reality to augmented reality to now what becomes XR, which is extended reality. And that's kind of our program in Oklahoma. That's what we're known for. We do a lot with technology. And so we do a lot with VR and AR and XR. But basically if you go to that website, you can get the information, but you can basically take and do a virtual build of any space. And then you can control students where they go, if they go to a classroom. So ours was an exact replica. We just took our schematic drawing of our building, had it converted into using SketchUp. We teach SketchUp to our kids. And so our high school students learned how to take the drawings and the site plan of a site and convert it into a SketchUp 3D model. And then from the 3D model, we were able to bring it into an XR platform. And so That's the website. You can check that out, xrschools.org, and you can find more information there. But yeah, it works really, really well. And in fact, we're getting ready to release the next part of it, where our students, we're working with our school right now, where we're going to put an actual VR station on the campuses with the schools, so that when the teachers, it'll be in one of our rooms, the teachers can go to that room, they can put on their VR headset, and they can actually physically walk in the room where the kids are at. And the kids will be avatars, the teacher will be a teacher. They can wave, they can communicate, they can talk, they can give high fives, they can hug, they can do all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Okay, thank you. Alicia, you mentioned some digital tools that you use to manage program delivery, community, and parent engagement. Can you talk a little bit about those?
Yes, I also put it in the chat, but I know there's like a whole bunch of other, the chat box is lit. So I will just say that again. So we use Flipgrid, we use Pear Deck, and we wound up using Google Meet because at the time the district was not allowing the usage of Zoom. So we used Google Meet the entire summer. So we downloaded some extensions and also used Jamboard. Jamboard is like the whiteboard function for Google. It was amazing. We had an intern, a group of interns for their final project. They made an entire book about the environment and children having a love for the environment through Jamboard. Again, the onions that were in my house at that time were amazing. The book is awesome. But yeah, Jamboard, Flipgrid, Pear Deck were the main ones that we used with our kids, and they are all free. Very easy to learn and use. My daughter's using it right now for her kindergarten class. So she made her first Flipgrid video and uploaded it into her email to send to her teacher. So if my 5-year-old can do it, I think I will be able to do it at some point, maybe next year. And then Remind was the app that we used for our parent communications. Chandler shouted it out as well. So what I do like about Remind is that it is almost like kind of like blind messaging. They will not be able to see the number or email address that you're using to communicate with them, and you and vice versa. You can't see the phone number or email that they're using, but you are able to send out mass messages. You can send out individual messages as well as attaching video, PDFs. So we use that to save paper because we are an environmental nonprofit, but we use that to send out communication, send pictures of what the kids are doing during the day or screenshots of their virtual experiences. If they did fashion design, we send pictures of that as well so they could see what they did, as well as being able to attach handouts and newsletters.
Great, thank you. So we have some questions about delivering meals and snacks to kids and families. Are any of you partnering with organizations like dairy councils? Can you share what worked and what didn't work with your meal delivery this summer?
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I know for us, yeah, that we had a little bit of a learning curve, just because we partnered in with a local grocery store, and one of the local foundations paid for it, and they paid for the sponsorship, and so part of the learning curve was setting up the appropriate time for delivery, because a lot of times we would contact parents and we'd say, hey, we're going to deliver the groceries. It's going to be the same time every week. And you know how it is, stuff comes up, things happen, people aren't at home. So you would leave food outside, and then you get the disgruntled phone call or text because the food was set outside and it was in the middle of the summer, and and it was hot. And so, really what we had to, we still had to navigate with that model, because we weren't trying to bring people on site to create any kind of grouping type events. But what we ultimately moved to was we had to just use just a simple texting system. Are you home? Do you want us to deliver it with you not there? Would you prefer for it to be delivered later? But I mean, I know in our experience, it was a little bit of it wasn't just as smooth as, okay, we have these families that need food. We've got groceries. We're going to give it to them, and it's just going to be done and over. And then we had to get volunteers, because we had 60 families we adopted. And so they all weren't located in the same spot. And so it took an army of volunteers to kind of coordinate, to get it picked up. It took us about 3 or 4 weeks to kind of get into our flow to where we could do 60 families within an hour to an hour and 15 minutes. So there definitely was a learning curve for them.
Great. So we are almost at time. KJ and Alicia have agreed to stay on a couple minutes to answer some more program specific questions. But I wanted to give Jodi and Aaron a chance to just say any last remarks, and then I'll have a couple announcements, and then we'll continue the extended portion. Aaron or Jodi?
Jodi, go ahead if you want to go first.
No, I just wanted to say that I am leaving this webinar inspired, and to those of you that are doing things on the ground, Alicia, KJ, thank you. You are truly changing lives, and it's amazing what you are doing with so little. And we will continue to do everything we can to try and get you more, so that you could, I mean, it is, I'm sure your staff are not making millions of dollars, and the fact that they are taking a pay cut to serve kids is extraordinary, but we should be giving them a pay raise. Right. So I want to thank you all for what you do, and also please keep letting us know at the national level and in our work with all of our 50 wonderful state networks, what are the things that you need that we can do through policies, through guidance, and advocacy to try and get them into your hands so that they can meet the needs of kids and families. And thank you again. And thank you to the wonderful team at the Afterschool Alliance and NSLA for doing all of the hard work to make this survey possible.
And thank you, Jodi, and thank you, KJ and Alicia, for everything you shared and everyone out there. I would also agree. And that this is both, there's a lot of hard data and real truths of challenge in the survey, but I think we're, again, also flipping it and kind of, it is what our summer and after school is. It could be both a time of great inequity, or it could be a time of great opportunity and a time for innovation. And I'm hearing about so much entrepreneurship, which is, I think, something that drew so many of us to this space, the chance to come up with new ideas and reach kids and families in new ways that maybe weren't possible in other settings. And also, you know, I just want to flag, because there's going to be other data coming about this, about the mental health piece of this for not only our families, our students, but also our staff. And that this is real, you know, traumatic for some and very hard for most. And that we just got to figure out to sustain this great work, you know, is going to take a lot of support and checking in with each other the same way we're checking with students. And the last thing I'll just say that kind of keeps it all going, because as Jodi said, and your staff, KJ, demonstrated, is like, none of us are in this to get rich and to make money. And there's so much love on this call and so much love in our field that whatever the challenges are, I don't mean to be hokey about it, but that is what will kind of motivate us to keep going and keep making the difference and get us back to where we need to be and even better. So it's a real honor to work with all of you. Thank you.
And I just wanted to say I'd be absolutely remiss if I didn't thank Tina too, because we could not do this without tremendous support from our school district leaders. And thank you so much for seeing the whole child, and those of us that don't operate during the traditional school day as the partners that we strive to be in educating our kids.
Great, thank you. So just a couple announcements so we wrap up the main part of our webinar. Lights On After School 2020 is coming up. I just dropped a link in the chat box to more information on the Afterschool Alliance's webpage. That will be virtual Lights On activities in the works for the week of October 19th and a National Youth Town Hall October 22nd. So look out for announcements about that as well. And there's an updated event planning toolkit on their website. And then I'd also like to put a plug in for our NSLA's Voices of Summer webinar series. So you can see more about that on our website. The link is in the chat box as well. And you can get links to our past webinars, as well as see ones that are coming up as well. And if you are following the Afterschool Alliance or NSLA on some social media, please be sure to do that so you hear all the latest announcements and updates on new events, resources that are coming out, etc. I'm going to say thank you here. If anybody wants to stay on to hear some, there's some other great questions in the Q&A box that I'm going to put for KJ and Alicia. But if not, thank you all for joining us today. Thank you, KJ. Thank you, Alicia. Thank you, Tanya, and everybody. A lot of really great information today, and we will be in touch. So I'm going to go back now to our, let me stop our share here and answer some additional questions, ask some additional questions that are in here for those of you who are still with us. So here's a question. How are you handling staffing knowing that schedules may change when schools are virtual to hybrid to in-person and back? Any shortages? So managing staff and the ups and downs of that right now.
Well, I'll just say, yes, you described it very well. It is the ups and downs. And you know, as an ED, that actually, I'm not your typical ED because I actually am a site coordinator too for our high school program because I enjoy teaching. I love being in the classroom. But I know I'm just after 3 weeks of doing all day programming and just the rescheduling and the shuffling with our staff, I know that I told my board, I said, we're gonna have to hire in some backup just because it's a draining time because day school is a work of art all in of itself. But right now the toll that it's taking on the teachers, what I can see is it's not gonna be a long-term sustainable thing. So we're gonna have to look at a model of where we put staff in half-day shifts or something, because when the kids are doing their distance learning and we're trying to keep them engaged and keep them distanced, and we're trying to manage all that. It's like classroom management on steroids. And so I need my staff to be able to survive, not only survive COVID, but survive this time. And so what we're going to do is we're going to look at, but depending on funding, and this is why the 21st century funding being released would be great. So how we could do a blended model of how our staff could work half days, because what's being required of them and asked of them is pulling from a different tool set. And so for the long term, I think that's what we're going to look at.
I agree. And I'll say, for even though Super Kids Camp doesn't run into the school year, we do have an after school program for high schoolers, which is a whole nother level. So we have 3 staff that are dedicated for that. And normally they are used to after school 4 days a week, starting in the middle, late October, going all the way until June. And so now, because of all of this and the fact that we are most likely going to be virtual, following along with the school district up until at least, January, February, they have decided to they did a whole about face and remodeled their program. So now we're going to be in semester. So we're going to have the same amount of kids, but just in 2 different, for semester. So we'll start late November, going to late January, and then we're going to start again from March and then go until June. And so yesterday we're having a conversation, and my manager's like, well, do you think that, should we just do it like we normally did? And I said, and look, and I'll say, like Aaron talked about the self-care. I said, after all of this, I said, especially since you guys did March through June virtually, you then ran a whole virtual summer program, and now you're going to start again with, your high schoolers. I said, you're going to need that break from January to March to just relax, reflect, debrief, revise, and get ready for the next group. I said, I think it would be crazy to try and, work the whole time. And like I said, it's just 3 of them. So I need them all to stay. So, for me, I'm just like, no, please take that time and, whatever you need, let me know so that I can try to do it for you, try to find some magic money in the air to get that done for you. Because if one of them leaves, that is the whole destruction of the program. So that self-care is definitely important, especially for them. And so I've been very delicate with them this since March, because I need them. I just need them to stay, and then also trying to find that funding to see okay, well, what if, is there somebody else that can, we can pull in case they burn out. So that's the other, obstacle. And like I said, I'm hoping all 3 of them stay, because then we'll be good. But yeah, it's definitely a challenge, because we don't know. We have no idea. We're going based on kids' schedules right now. But if the powers that be have the, the ability to change everything that the school district's planned and said, okay, next month you guys are going back, that totally, we have to rewire our whole program all over again. So good times.
We also, let me add, we've also hired some parents, because we had parents who lost their jobs during this time. And so that is something that we just, we initiated here a week ago as we started picking up some parents who are available during the day. And so, and that's been great because it, you know, obviously it helps them out. It gets them engaged, not just in their own child's learning, but just in the education in general. And so we're tapping into that existing labor pool as well to pull them in. So.
Great. We have a question here from Miranda. She has a program for high school students that's based at a community college. She wanted to know if you have any recommendations on programs that alleviate online fatigue and or foster a culture of care. So their campus is going to be closed, so they're going to continue to only offer online class.
So I know with our high school that is the big challenge. One of the things that we did is to put them in a group where they could actually, you know, kind of, we can deal with the SEL component. I had to provide an excellent carrot. And so one of the things that we decided to do was we're offering our driver's ed course for our high school students is offered online. And so to complete the driver's ed and we pay for the driver's ed course for them. And so they do their driver's ed course, but they also have to do a life skills class. And in that life skills class component, which we call Next Level, one of the pieces that they have is we work on peer-to-peer relationships. And so so we used the carrot. I mean, it's not really baiting and switching, but you know, every teenager wants to drive. And so we provided that for them, which gave them incentive to be online, but then also the opportunity to do something else that connects. And so they're able to come to a location to connect. We're working on getting that location open, but right now they have to do it via Zoom. So we do Zoom mentoring group type things. But then also what we do for some of our kids, I don't know if you guys are aware how big esports is and how big it's becoming. You know, esports has become a valuable asset for our high schoolers during this time because it's creating the same team mentality and all of the benefits that they get from team gaming, such as basketball, football, cheer, volleyball, softball, all of those things, you know, creating our esports teams. And so as we're forming students in the esports teams and creating the tournaments, that's something that they can do from home using their own gaming consoles. We're setting up our own league. We have their own tournaments, but then also too, it's giving them that team companionship and things of that nature. So those are just two things that we're using right now to kind of just fill that void with our high school students.
Yes, we don't pay for their driver's ed. That's an excellent idea, though. But we do, it is a paid internship program. So we check in with them twice a week. We stay online for them for about 30 to 60 minutes twice a week. And then they really do have a lot of independent work, but because it is paid and they have to submit everything through Google Classroom, we give, you know, they have a rubric so they know, like, okay, if I get like a 1, I'm not going to get my full stipend. But if I get a 5, like, yes, every time that they are doing this, you know, it goes towards what their stipend is going to be. So if they want to get their full, I'll say normal stipend, then they know you have to make sure that they are, you know, using everything that they see on the rubric, everything in the 5 column checks off, so they'll get their full amount. So that did prove to be, you know, really great. We are really into project-based learning. They're used to it. They do a whole a green entrepreneurial challenge in the winter months because we get not taking them outside because we love the children, we want them to stay. So in the winter months, we do a green entrepreneurial challenge. So they're used to, you know, how project-based learning works and working independently. So they actually did really well, much better than probably any of the high school students that I've taught in my 10 years of teaching Spanish ever would do independently. But they also had that kind of financial motivation, but, you know, and they also wanted to make sure the product was good because they knew they were going to have to present on it at some point. But yeah, but that project-based learning really, it was fantastic for them to have those skills because if they didn't, I'm not sure what, I don't think it would have been as successful in the spring when we had to go virtual if we kind of just let them loose if they didn't have that kind of project-based learning thinking and mentality already.
Mm-hmm. Here's an interesting question. For besides the need for tech access, what have been the biggest asks or needs from youth and parents or families? So besides tech, what other supports have they needed?
We've gotten a lot just for help for, think where can they go. A lot of our parents were laid off, so they were also asking like, one, do we have any positions available, or do we know how they can get, how do I find out like who is hiring, or is it like some like COVID website? Um, we had, unfortunately, we had a couple of our interns, our high school interns who lost parents to COVID. So we did, as a staff kind of come together, raise funds, get them some grocery cards so that they would still be able to maintain. Because for one of them, they are kind of now like the head of the household. So they have to kind of take care of everything. And, they're working a college student part-time job. And then some of the other things that they've asked is just like, well, what else can my child do? Like, I don't want he or she to be online all day. So, what else is there? Are you guys offering any programming? Who is offering some programming that might be in person, or just, what are some ideas I can do just to take my child outside and do things? So even like our staff, we would kind of give them during the breaks, we would give them kind of like nature challenges or outdoor challenges, or some type of like athletic challenge that they could do. We would tell the parents like, yeah, if you can, do it with them, or if not, go ahead and just make sure that they're doing that. And they'll have a scavenger hunt, and then when they come back, they'll have a conversation about what they found or if they did the activity. And I'll say the last thing is just always knowing where those meal sites were. Some of them were closed. Sometimes the notification wouldn't come out on time. So, we also, even though we're not, we weren't giving out any meals, we weren't a site to do that. We also just had to be knowledgeable of all that information, because at the time they were like, well, okay, well, you're the summer program provider, everything. So we kind of had to be able to provide every little bit of information to parents. And now, even though the program is over, we still do get questions about, okay, well, now what? So yeah, we have to kind of be like a whole receptacle of knowledge for everything that's going on in Baltimore City, and be able to direct them to where they need to go.
Same out here in Tulsa. I think one thing I would add is I've had some conversation with parents who are forced in the situation to have to reinvent themselves because industries have been hit hard. Folks who might have worked at maybe, they might have worked in the movie theater, might have worked in the restaurant industry. There's all these industries that have been adversely affected. And so now they've lost their job, or they've been furloughed, or different things. And so now we have families who are forced, these parents who are forced to expand their education. So, they're asking, what are the resources for, what are we supposed to do? Because this is what I've always done. This is not possible anymore. So how am I going to be able to get back in the workplace? So that's been something we've been dealing with. I would say too, also, a common question is what are all of the COVID resources that are available to us? And that is I just had a conversation yesterday with an agency that we're trying to work with to try and figure out a way that we can streamline that information so that families are aware of what are all of the resources that are available, because there are resources from what I'm learning of, if a family has to be on quarantine, there are resources for that. There's all this stuff. There's so much information that it's out there kind of in this vacuum that it's not been, aggregated and assembled so that it can be disseminated. And so how does a parent, to answer your question shortly, how does a parent reinvent themselves for the new job market based off of the disappearing of certain industries? What are the COVID resources that are available to families as different things happen during this time?
Great, we have a final question. So this one again is getting at the stress that young people are feeling due to time and time constraints and expectations, having to deal with technology all day. Should providers step outside of the box and be non-conformist in adhering to our philosophy of the need for outdoors, physical activity, SEL experiences, breath work? So I guess really where are you guys putting your kind of priorities and your emphasis, and how do you offer kind of pushback to those that may not understand why you're placing those priorities that way?
Sorry, Katie. I think it's like I don't know. I'm an educator. I think we normally just I don't even know if it's like nonconformist. I think it's just in our DNA that I need to make sure that my kids are good. I need to make sure that, families are good and that I'm good and my staff is good. I don't even know necessarily if it is nonconformist, because I do feel like I go, above and beyond, but I wouldn't even say it is above and beyond for myself. It's just I need to do what needs to get done. And so, you know, with that, I mean, we're trying to figure out how can we, you know, help these parents. And like I said, like, you know, the 20 minutes that, you know, the kid might have been sitting with my counselor online to eat lunch, that's 20 minutes that parent had to not have to worry about, you know, their child for like a second, like they can breathe. And, you know, now working and being with my daughter who's, you know, in kindergarten, yay, for her first year of school, you know, it's hard. Like there are just times where I'm like, oh my God, if I could just sit in a corner and like, I'm loving this webinar because I'm sequestered from everyone else right now and they don't have to come and bother mommy right now. You know, so I mean, it's just, it's hard, but I mean, I will make those phone calls. I'll do emails. You know, I petition to my supervisor sometimes about, well, hey, I know such and such is experiencing this. Can we do this? Can we do that? And how can we, you know, even for our interns, how can we have this like Saturday program where, you know, it's eight kids, or 8 high schoolers and 2 adults, and we just get together and do some type of socially distanced exercise so that one, they'll get to meet each other. Because some of them, like for the program when we start, some of them are returning. So yeah, I know what you look like. We've been together in a setting, but for other, you know, if they're new to the program, they don't know us, we don't know them, and they definitely don't know the other kids. You know, so we are being as creative as possible to make sure that, you know, yeah, we might be, you know, so we can provide some type of in-person program for them, that we can try to see, is there any way that we can get some money together and be able to give out some, you know, gift cards or grocery cards. I mean, I don't even know if it's non-conformist. I think as an educator, it's in our DNA to want to do whatever we can do to make sure that the people that we serve are good. That's just, I mean, when I lay down my head, I want to make sure that, you know, I feel like I did a good job and I served somebody and somebody's better off because of me at the end of the day.
And I can't add anything to that because that was beautiful. Like I just say, yeah, that nails it. I mean, you know, I know we are looking, you know, this has caused us to look for all kind of different funding sources and just even different things, because we were primarily 21st century. And so that, since that was locked up, you know, it forced us to look elsewhere. But we're looking at even on our site, we're building we want to put this outdoor classroom. That's so I got with an architectural firm for pro bono just during this time. They're designing for us this gigantic outdoor classroom that could be used for the kids to be able to go and be in an outdoor classroom, an outdoor space. And so, yeah, just echoing what Alicia said. I mean, at the end of the day, I look at everything that we do is we're being innovative. We are pressing through. You know, it doesn't matter how much the wind blows. You know, we're just the wind isn't going to stop us. And I think that's the heart of everybody that's on this call, everybody that works with young people. Our heart is that nothing's going to stop it, because this next generation is worth it. So we'll do what we have to do. We'll follow the laws. We'll respect everything that's been put in place. But at the end of the day, we're going to be creative and innovative to make sure that all of our students are getting everything that they need.
So thank you, Alicia and KJ, for being so generous with your time and your wisdom. Still have about 90 people left or still with us. So any last words of wisdom or encouragement for them as we head into the rest of the year?
Yeah, I would just say, again, we always try and teach kids to think outside of the box. And I know that we're great at saying that, and we're, you know, but now is the time that we get to model that. And I think how we as educators and those who work with students, how we model our programs, how we adapt. We talk to kids about being flexible and learning to adapt. And we talk to kids about having grit, all the things that I think that we have been preaching to our kids, so to speak. I think right now we have the opportunity to demonstrate. And so I guess my encouragement, you know, to you would be, you know, that when this first came down, I dealt with a lot of frustration just because this system wasn't right, or this communication wasn't right. And so I found myself early on getting caught up in blaming what wasn't working, but that's a deadly trap to fall into. And so my encouragement would be, there's going to be stuff that's not going to work probably for the next year. So accept that, get creative, and figure out how to use what you have, start where you are, and just do what you can, and just serve the kids, and know that every person doing their part we're gonna get through this together. We're gonna come on the other side. There's gonna be some bumps in the road. There's gonna be some things that, some unfortunate events, but at the end of the day, if we just keep pushing, like we tell the kids to keep pushing, we'll get there. So be encouraged, be innovative, be creative.
And see, now I feel like, okay, now what do I say? But I would, everything that KJ said, and I would just say, just please know, you can do it. You can do it. Like there is, even though I'm teleworking, I can see in my, on my wall, there is a bus schedule. So like I said, we serve 600 kids. We do provide bus transportation, and the northeast part of Baltimore City is the largest amount of kids. So we try not, trying to get them all fit. And I managed to figure out how to get like all this large group of kids into this like 3-bus route. And I was like, oh my God. And I wrote myself a note 2 years ago. It's still there. And I need to change it because I said, now that I did virtual, I need to apply that to another piece of paper. But I wrote, if you can figure this out, Alicia, you can do anything. And every time I would get kind of like beat down on myself this summer, I visually, from a visual learner, I visually could see that Post-it. And I was like, Alicia, if you could figure this out with this bus schedule, you can do anything. So I would say that you can do it. It's going to seem hard. Like KJ said, there's going to be a lot against you. There's going to be a lot of changes, but please know that you can do it. You're going to do it. And the kids in the world are watching. They're watching you do it, and they know they're rooting for you, even though you don't know that they are. Oh, those onions. Okay.
Thank you again, Alicia, KJ. Thank you everybody who stuck around with us. Hopefully you heard something that you're going to be able to hopefully inspire you in your program this school year or into next summer. We're going to capture everything that was in the chat box, all those links, share those out with you and email those to you. So thank you again, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.